Can you just tell us your name, a brief history of yourself, and what you do?
Yeah, cool. So my name's Tom Barnett. Been a holistic health practitioner for over 10 years. And these days I do film and photography. I wanted a creative outlet, but I'm still obviously, because people saw my videos, still interested in educating people on the health and also personal freedoms.
And on that topic, what's your perspective on freedom of choice and speech in Australia? And do you think we have it here in Australia?
Not at all. No, I think if you're within the boundaries, you can say what you want, but as soon as you're outside of those boundaries, you're silenced, you're brought down.
Why do you think they're silencing?
Well, I think it's got a lot to do with the agendas that they have put in place. So if you threaten what they're trying to put out to the public, I think if you go against that grain in any way, that's a threat to their perceived power that they have over people. And at the end of the day, it comes down to money. So there's two things: it's the power, and then it's the money, because everything's corporate owned. So you threaten that, and you're shut down.
So they don't really care about the people. Then they care about money and keeping the system going.
Absolutely, it's never been about people. Funnily enough, it's actually a government is forsworn to protect its people, but not that long ago they created persons instead of people. So people are us, the living people, but when they created persons, those are just legal entities. They're dead things. They don't matter. So that's why it's all become about money and power.
So that goes into legalese and common law.
Yeah.
Which is kept from the people in a sense.
Yeah.
You have to go on a search to find that, and then you realize that there's two constitutions. There's a green one and there's the original one. Yeah, man, it's crazy, the common law stuff and the straw man.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you even get people to even be open to that?
Yeah.
That their name is their name, and you are not your name.
I think people have to be woken up a certain way. When if somebody doesn't have a reason to learn that, if they don't see beyond what's put in front of their face and on the TV and in the newspapers and things, they have no reason to want to. It's only when people kind of butt their head up against the brick wall, so to speak, that they start going, wow, there's actually boundaries here. I'm kind of in a cave. So that's when they start to have to look further. And they're the people who are open until then.
Can you, I guess, put it in a way that the public can understand what you mean by like persons and the straw man and the...
Yeah, sure, yeah. Yep, so there's essentially two realms that we operate in. There's a public and a private realm. So the public realm is what we're conditioned into. So we're considered persons, we're considered ratepayers, taxpayers, drivers, citizens, trustees, beneficiaries, these sorts of things. These are all statutory terms. So in the world of the public, there's like 7 million plus statutes. You come under acts, codes, regulations, rules, and laws. In the realm of the private though, there's really only two laws, and that's love thy neighbour and love thy creator. All these laws come from the Bible. Whether you think the Bible's great or it's the worst thing ever, it makes no difference. That's what our laws are based on. So if you can learn a bit about that, then it helps you to learn a bit about the system and the structure we live under. So it's nothing religious, it's just the structure and the laws that we live under. So if you learn to move yourself more into the private, and then you don't come under statutory rules and codes. So you and I as men, we have inherent rights. Those rights can't be taken away. But rights don't exist for persons, only benefits and privileges. So in the world of the public, you have benefits and privileges. You have welfare, you can get a driver's license and a passport. Like, who really, like most people just deep down, like isn't there something really weird about being told you need a permit to go to your neighbour's house? Like, what kind of world is that? So in the world of the private, as men and women, we have inherent rights. We have the right to travel, we have the right to do business with each other how we please, and as long as we're not harming one another, we are not violating any codes. So that is the world of the private. So it's, like you said, we're not educated. We're also not taught how to have a body. That's why so many people get mental illnesses and physical illnesses, because we're not taught. So it's only really when we have to go out of our way to educate ourselves, that's when we find, the answers that aren't just given to us, which should be given to us.
Yeah, we're not taught really how to take care of, or what this is, this vehicle, this body.
Yeah.
We don't like, every day I walk around, like, I actually don't know what this body is, and I'm slowly figuring and feeling it out. But
yeah,
going back to what you're saying about the persons in this private and the public sort of sectors that we live in, have they got over on us because we've given they've tricked us into giving our consent?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it works. Yeah. So if you agree to being a name, for example, if I say to you, are you Richie? And you go, yeah, you're agreeing to being that name, but you're not a name. A name is just an entity. So you're the living being, and then the name is attached to you. So when you can learn to separate from the name or any statutory term, that's when you can reclaim rights. This essentially just comes down to not answering questions. So if somebody's an authority and they say, is this you? You just say, well, do you have some evidence that it is? You always answer it back with a question. As soon as you start answering questions, you subvert to another individual under the rules or the laws of commerce, which is essentially what governs us, especially in Australia. Definitely the States as well, UK, Europe, all those places. But yeah.
So pretty much we're a piece of property.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Interesting thing about the word property though is that a lot of people at the moment are worried about their kids. What kind of world are they bringing them into? You know, people are starting to see now it's not all roses and stuff. You know, they're not necessarily, these governing systems aren't really there to help us. A lot of people are seeing that now, so they're starting to get worried about their young. And what's important to do is to learn a bit about statutory terms, because if you refer to them as a child is a creature of statute. So you want to call them your young, for example. But the thing about them is that they are technically, in a legal sense, they're your property. So if you have kids, they're actually your property. So you have complete rights over your property. It's like you own your car or your guitar or anything, that's your property. So nobody can actually take your property away without your consent. So that's actually something powerful, is to realize that you're young or your property.
So it's almost, you just got to keep your lips shut.
See, that's almost as bad. Because if you don't say anything, you technically assent to what somebody says to you, which means that you unconsciously agree. So you've always got to remain in honour, and you have to engage, but on your terms. So not answering questions or returning with a question, and always remaining in that space of power.
Okay. And just before we go to the next question, human.
Yeah.
In Black's Law Dictionary means
monster.
Monster.
Yeah. Well, Hugh means monster. Yeah.
Hugh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if people want to really go deep in this, they can even go look at etymology.
Yeah.
As well. And Black Law's Dictionary, would you recommend?
Yeah, Black's definitely. Anything up to the 5th edition is good. They start omitting things after certain editions because they go, well, we don't want people to know these things. So earlier the better.
Do you believe that people are being silenced and ridiculed in Australia for just speaking their perspective about world topics?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Anything that goes against the grain of the narrative that is being put onto the population, then 100% you're silenced.
Are you being silenced or ridiculed, or know anyone personally being silenced and ridiculed for speaking out here in Australia?
Yeah, both, yeah. So I've been pretty much... Anybody that wants to see my stuff on Facebook or YouTube would have to go directly to my page. It won't turn up on feeds. Subscribers have been messaging me saying that they subscribe, and when I put my new videos out, they don't see them, so they're asking where they are. A number of even things like my emails and my website have gone a bit funny. You know, almost like somebody's tampering with them, that sort of thing. I mean, I've never been motivated to have a voice. You know, I don't need to get videos out or anything like that. I only made the videos I did because there was, I guess, people asking certain questions, so I made those videos. But there's a definite silencing happening. Me and then other people that I know. This is a big area here in Byron Bay and Mullumbimby. A lot of people are what you would call activists, or at least they are people that know that there's something not right, and they speak out about it. And most of my friends who are in that category are also being silenced.
For acting?
For acting, yeah. Yeah.
Because they can see that there's something not right.
That's right.
And I guess that's why you're doing all of this, is because you see something that isn't right, and you can't sit and watch anymore, and you want to do something about it.
That's why I made that first video. Yeah. I told my friends actually before I made it, I said, I'm going to make a video about viruses and about, what's going on with this. And they said, well, no one's going to care and no one's going to watch it. And I said, yeah, I know. And then the only reason I needed to make it still was that looking back, so whatever happens in the future, wherever this goes, could go pretty bad, you never know. If it goes bad, I want to be able to look back and say, I at least put something out. And if nobody ever watched it, that wasn't the point. It was more that I needed to know for me that I did something. And then it went everywhere, so that was good.
I guess that's why I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
so I can look back and go, I did something.
You knew.
I didn't sit and watch. And that's that's what a lot of people are going to be thinking in the future. They're going to be like, wow, I could have done something.
Yeah. Yeah, a few people, they were making jokes about it. They were saying, you know, when you have kids and things later in life and they say, what did you do when that whole corona thing was on? And are you going to say that you did something, or are you going to say that you sat in your house and watched Netflix and let everyone get steamrolled by whatever is coming through, you know? So it's like, how can you say that you actually did something?
Yeah.
Or did you just sit back and let it happen? And yeah, I just definitely don't want to be somebody that has sat back and let things come through.
Yeah, me neither. Do you think media plays a big role on the public's perspectives about world topics?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got pretty much two distinct categories. You got the people who know that almost every single thing in the media, especially if it's mainstream media and it's international mainstream media, whatever they're saying, then probably the opposite is true. It's usually all just a lie. You've got a small category of people who know that. Then you've got the majority of the population that just think that everything that they see in the media is the truth. It's real and it's for their best interests. So because they are the majority, then 100% the media, the mass media, is definitely influencing and affecting the way the general population thinks about things.
Yes, there's mainstream and there's alternative. Which one's true?
Yeah.
In mainstream, you have this entity called media that is meant to be providing us truth about the world and about a pandemic that's happening, and it just baffles me how you can have so many different mainstream media platforms saying different things, and if they were really truly for the people, they would be saying the same thing. They would be telling you to up your turmeric and your vitamin C and vitamin D and all these natural things you can do without money. I guess generating money is what I want to say. But
yeah, completely. Well, it's interesting because there's, if you'd like comedies, Will Ferrell made the Anchorman movies, and at the end of the second one, they showed that there was, I think it was Anchorman, pretty sure. They showed that there's what used to be in the 80s, something like 70 or 80 different media outlets, and then coming into the 90s and 2000s, that got reduced to 3 that controlled all of these other media outlets. So then you're starting to have to ask the question, well, what becomes independent journalism? Does that even exist anymore? You know, so then you have the independent media, or you know, your social media and things like that. But then you've also got the people from these large organizations that plant people in there to give some, you know, like slightly misleading things that then means that anybody that goes down an alternative road, it can now be, well, is that real or is that fake? You know, did they set that up? And it takes the trust out of some of the alternative media, which means that, see, personally, I don't think it's a bad thing per se. Reason being is that it then teaches people that you really have to take responsibility for yourself and what you think is real. So if you see something, it means that you can't just take it on face value, which I think is a good thing to have to learn, because then it means that you have to go out and find the answers for yourself, and only then can it really mean something to the individual. If you're just believing what people say, no matter who, whether it's alternative or mainstream or whatever, I think you're just giving your power away if you're just going to blindly believe and trust what somebody else is telling you, you know.
In the States, I saw this chart, how the media platforms are controlled by like 3 groups. It's the Bilderberg meeting, the Bilderberg group, the Council on Foreign Relations, and there's one other, I'm not sure. But would you say that the same thing's happening here? It's controlled by one person or 2?
Yeah.
2 corporate persons, or
same groups.
Same groups. Is the States connected here, you think?
Yeah. Well, Australia is a registered corporation in Washington, DC. That's where it's registered. We're pretty much a subsidiary of the United States. And because we're relatively small, especially when it comes to monetary structure and things, a lot of what we're owned by is United States companies. So these media companies that you said, they're the same ones that own a lot of us. Like we have the Packers, and they were big. I think a lot of them went to jail. I'm not sure. I can't remember with them. Then we have there's the Murdochs, the Murdoch group. So they're big in Australia too. So you've got a big crossover. It's not that there aren't big players in Australia, but a lot of the larger companies come from, or a lot of our influence comes from those huge companies that own everything in the States.
Wow. I bet a lot of people do not know that.
Yeah. Even we have the ABC, which is the Australian Broadcast Company, I think it's called. It's supposed to be the independent Australian. So you got your main channels. This is on mainstream television, which we only have 5 or something. You probably have tons in the States.
Yeah.
We have like 5 channels.
One for each state.
Yeah. So the ABC is supposed to be the independent one, but they're 100% owned by a bunch of different corporate interests. So you see that they silence a lot of topics that we've been talking about. So they heavily silence that, and they have a lot. When you see what they put out and what they silence, it just points fingers as to who has the fingers in their pie.
Big puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts surrounding COVID-19? I know you've put out a few videos, but I guess in a nutshell, and away from labels and conspiracies and categories of what you can be called, it's like what's your raw sort of truth about COVID-19?
Yeah, I'm not even sure there's actually a virus. I think it's just a big control measure. I think it's what people needed. People are super afraid of something that they can't see. And as soon as their personal safety is threatened, then they're right into that lower sense of their ego where now everybody else needs to take responsibility for them. So therefore everybody has to do what they're doing. So when they want to put measures like these lockdowns and things in, they have to do a bit of work, but they know that if they strike the fear into the general population and the general population doesn't think for itself, then they're going to self-regulate. So you and I might walk down the street, but if our neighbours are all part of that majority of the population, they're going to dob us in, or they're going to try to stop us themselves. The powers that be don't necessarily have to do it all themselves. So I think that this whole COVID thing is just one big setup to try to arrest more control from us, take more of our rights back, and to see, it's like a test. It's how will the population act and react? Like, will they just fall over like dominoes and let us do what we want? What percentage of people are going to stand up to this, so that when they want to roll out the real one, I actually think this is a warm-up, to be honest. I think we're yet to see what they're capable of doing, either depopulating or taking in massive control measures, forcing people to do things that they don't want to do. I think that's yet to come, and I think this was pretty much a test to see what they're up against.
I like what you said about the people dobbing us in, because that's what's happened. They've turned the people into the weapon against people like us, or humans like us, I should say. And no matter what we say, they already have a preconceived idea because of fear.
Yeah.
Being a hypochondria of symptoms, and like when you start to feel these symptoms, you're in fear of getting a certain disease, and the illness almost traps you in this cycle of fear, so that you actually start developing symptoms. You start developing that sickness that you're actually afraid of. And I feel like they've turned all these people in the world overnight into hypochondrias, and when they start to get flu symptoms in their head, they're getting coronavirus.
Yeah.
And then they do get coronavirus because they believe it and they feel it.
Yeah, well, they'll get a reaction of some kind, but the testing that says that something is coronavirus or not is hugely flawed. It shouldn't even be a valid test. It is so bad, and they're getting 80% false positives. So you might have a cold or a flu, which is just a natural reaction to, like you said, from stress. A lot of people know they get a cold when they're hugely stressed. It's not because they're like vitamin deficient. Well, can be, but it's like the stress that leaches all the nutrients from the body. So a lot of people know that they get these things when they're stressed. And, this whole false positive testing protocols and things, it's not, it's just playing into this, what I was talking about before with the agenda.
So what do you think about the doctors and nurses, the immunologists, the virologists, these police that are coming out speaking up, like Judy Mikovits and Dr. Shiva, Dr. Buttar, Andrew Kaufman, being silenced because they're speaking their perspective on COVID-19? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not surprising. Yeah, not surprising. I mean, I've been in this kind of game for a long time, so it's not surprising when people like that are silenced. I think they're very brave, because these are people, for me, I don't have any financial interests. No one can take anything away from me. I don't have licenses people can take away. I just stick to myself. I'm a pretty low-key guy. But these people who are board-registered doctors and things, they're really risking a lot, because they can lose, they're risking a lot. People have gone missing for that kind of thing, So I really respect people that are doing that. It's a shame that they're being silenced, but then again, it's when somebody gets silenced, that can trigger people to go, well, if they're being silenced, like why? Like now I want to know what they're saying even more. So it kind of can work. I never see anything as all positive or negative. I think there's a bunch of different aspects to any situation. So yeah, on the one hand, it's a shame that we don't have access, just free access to information. It's a shame that things are censored the way that they are. But on the other hand, it can really trigger people to want to step out and access information more when they know that it's that whole thing. If you tell a kid they can't have something, they want it more, you know, so, and it applies to adults too. So
now when videos like this are being put up, they have these fact checkers on Facebook. They have Snopes. Oh, Snopes says this, fact check says this. It's like, do you even know who owns Snopes or fact check?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Do you know who owns them? I forget. I mean, I found that out a while ago and it wasn't a surprise again, but people need to ask these questions. See, a lot of people, from when I was doing the political campaign as well, people would say, why are you anti-science? They'd say, this Tom guy with his anti-science views. And I'm saying, hang on a second, I did science for 6 years. Why do you think I'm anti-science? What is science? Do you even know what science is? Nobody can answer the question because they don't even know what that, you know what I mean? Like science is literally the act of asking questions. It's trying to find the answer to a well put forward question. And when you can't even ask those, that should beg another question. Why can't I ask that question, you know? So these people that have these fact-checking sites, they're bought and sold, like you say. Same with a lot of scientific studies. If you look into some of the studies that say vaccines don't cause autism, or that 5G is totally safe, or whatever it is, you know, coronavirus is causing this, or there's that many people just, again, take it on face value. They don't go out of the way and say, all right, so who did that? Who put out that result? And then what are they a part of? Who financed that? You know, where does it lead? People aren't asking those questions, but when they do ask those questions, they start to see these large organizations that are the ones that had the money behind it and also to market it and get it out. There's plenty of amazing doctors and scientists doing amazing work that we'll never hear of. And we don't hear of it because we're not directly connected to them. If you've got no marketing budget and Google doesn't like you, how does anybody ever hear of you or what you're doing? You know, it's only these people that have the money and the channels who are approved by Google and Facebook and all these, you know, these monopolizing agents. That's how information gets out. So, yeah, it's definitely not a level playing field.
So the people battling us, people like us, they can only see the tip of the iceberg. They're only standing on the side of the glacier lake looking at this tip of this iceberg that's sticking out of the water, whereas people like us are getting our, you know, scuba gear and going and exploring the copious amounts of ice under the surface.
It's a good way to put it, yeah.
You said vaccines. What's your perspective, thoughts on mandatory vaccines and vaccines in general?
Well, mandatory vaccines just sounds like a control measure. You know, like why would they need to be mandatory? You know, again, I came from a background of studying formally science. I never went to medical school, but I did study a lot of medicine while I was doing science and off my own study and things like that. So when I first was introduced to the idea that vaccines were not what I'd been learning, I was kind of like, all right, well, I'll take that on board and I'll see if I can find evidence for that. And I did. I started finding more evidence. I still didn't let go of the idea that vaccines are safe and effective and they were necessary and all that kind of thing. And if you didn't want to get a disease, yeah, you'd get a vaccine. So I still held that while I was pursuing more independent research, you know. And it took me a number of years to really find, at the halfway point, I was thinking, well, some of these vaccines definitely need to be, you know, questioned, because why are there these reactions happening? Why are they putting 3-in-1s? Why is the vaccine schedule going up and up and up every year, despite them saying that it is already, like polio doesn't exist? Apparently, you know, you find that's a lie too, but then why do you have to then get more and more vaccines if those ones were already working? Like I was a kid I was born in 1980. So when we got vaccines, it was nowhere near what kids are getting now. They're getting like triple what we got, more than that. So then you start having to think, well, why is that, you know? So, and then it took me a number of years, but my stance on vaccines now is that no vaccine is safe, no vaccine is effective, and no vaccine is necessary. They're only safe, effective, and necessary if you want to control people. That's it. It has nothing to do with health.
And would you say it actually compromised our immune systems?
100%.
The whole vaccine program since
Absolutely.
they started?
Yeah. So if you look at how they actually started, they killed people with the first few that they they gave to people. There was anti-vaxxers from the very first day that they wanted to introduce vaccines. That was the thing. People who were going, what are you doing with that? That's not how things work. That people understood back then that even like the best physicians knew that your body was as healthy as your internal environment. You know, you had a healthy internal environment. It was not a home to pathogens, you know. And people knew back then too that viruses weren't caught from people. They were created internally to get rid of the toxic residue that had built up, either from poor lifestyle, poor thoughts, combination of the two, or exposure to environmental toxins. People knew that. And then the germ theory came along, and that was a great way to sell medicines. And then that's what, you know, and then when there's money involved and there's media involved, because media get more money and they get into bed with each other, they start producing all the stories that we're told and that most people today still believe.
And people don't even know about the germ theory.
No.
They still wash their hands non-stop all day.
Not realizing that the bugs that are on our hands are our immune system. They are the defense. They keep us healthy and they keep nasty stuff out. So it's kind of like a really weird backwards way that people have things.
And this so-called new normal now, every store you walk in, you have to sanitize your hands.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't either. She sprayed it on my hand, I just flicked it off. But I did walk into the store and I had to buy a new light the other day, and literally came up to me with the temperature gun.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, are you not gonna sell me the light if I don't do this? He's like, no, I can. I was like, this is fucking, and he's like, laser to my forehead. And I could feel it after.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen one yet. I've heard they're in existence, but haven't seen one. You know the interesting thing about that though, again, like my mind always diverges, it goes into different things. So when I hear things like that, I just think, you know what that's doing is that's letting the people that think that that's a good idea, they're going to propagate that and they're going to want to live in that. But people like us, and the more you go around, the more you open your eyes, the more you see there's a lot more people like us than maybe there always was, but it just wasn't as obvious. But now it's obvious there are a lot more people like us. So what's going to happen is realistically, we're going to break away and create our own communities where we'll grow our own food organically. We don't need the industrial agricultural corporations to be involved in us feeding ourselves. It also doesn't cost us anything. The ground gives us that for free. You know, we can provide each other with everything we need to live harmonious, happy and creative lives. So realistically, it could be the thing. A lot of people, you know, I've gone off and lived in tents in the bushes for long periods of time just because I want to. I don't like living in society for the most part. So, and a lot of people feel the same. So, you know, this could be the thing that for all those people who've wanted to just live more naturally, this could be the push that gets us there. You know, it could be a positive thing.
I truly believe that as well, because so many independent people doing independent media and journalism outside of mainstream are starting to emerge now. And I know I'm seeing this evolution of just being able to provide information and share information. I feel like that's why it's being so censored and shut down, because people like you and people like Judy Mikovits and people like Michael O'Neill and people like Pete Evans and these people who can just put the puzzle pieces together and connect the dots are emerging, and it's like this immune system to this huge body that we're potentially on. I don't know.
I love that. I love that way of looking at it. We're like the white blood cells or something.
Yeah. and we're attacking those that true virus.
Yeah.
That's
the mind virus.
Yeah, the mind virus. Yeah. Obviously, I guess we know your answer, but do you think we should have a choice then on what's being put in our bodies, and to be able to know what's being put in our bodies is safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know what? I'll go one further. I'll say people call me an anti-vaxxer. Well, I'm not. You know, like if you say you want to get a vaccine, I'm not going to tell you not to. If you ask me a question, if you say, hey, do you know what's in vaccines? Do you know if it's a good idea? I'll give you my answer. But if you don't ask me, I'm not going to tell you. You know, so it's not like people watch TV. I don't tell them not to watch TV. People eat junk food. I don't tell them not to. Like I know what's good for my body, and I don't do any of those things. I don't watch TV, eat junk food. I won't take a vaccine, but I'm not going to tell other people that they can't. I think we're given a lot of these choices in life because it allows us to learn more about ourselves. And if you want to take that path, it's not a wrong path. If you want to take a vaccine, it's not a wrong move, but it definitely has to be a choice.
We're just providing a platter. Check this, look at this, look at this. Might be different from what you think. You don't have to believe it. We're just trying to help in the end.
Yeah.
And do the best we can.
Yeah. I think it's the answer. A lot of people have asked me this recently, and it's they say they're getting like this sadness and frustration because they say they're trying to help their friends or their family. Family's always the hardest, but their friends, and a lot of people have lost friendships since Corona started because they're going, hang on, this is really bad. We shouldn't be doing, this is something wrong. And then their friends are in the other camp, like really heavily divided. And they're saying, well, you're irresponsible if you're not going to stay in your house. You're potentially going to kill my kids if you don't wash your hands, like as if that could happen. But that's their mindset. So there's friendships falling apart. And people are saying, I want to be able to, what can I give them? Can you send me a link? Can you send me a resource that I can give to them? And I'm like, they're not going to listen. That's not how it works. But when I meet people like you, I can see in your eyes that there's a light on, you know? And so it's not necessarily, I think it's the people that are becoming aware of things. It's not what information you can give to people, it's who you are. So when somebody comes into your presence, and if you're shining that light from inside without opening your mouth and trying to tell somebody something different from what they already believe, they just go, there's something about this guy. And that affects a change in them more so than the words that you can, you know, give to them.
Almost on a spiritual frequency level.
Yeah, basically.
Energetic level.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people walk in the room, you're like, oh, who's that?
Yep.
Feel that.
And when people aren't scared. So something happens and we're just sitting here going, oh yeah. And people are freaking out. And then when two people are sitting in the room and they're not freaking out, they calm down a bit. They're like, well, why aren't these guys freaking out? You know, and all of a sudden then they're calmer now as well. So it's kind of like that, yeah, I would say it's the energy you put out has a huge effect on the world around us. So if more people can let go of some of this fear and also this need to give information to others, it's just not received in most cases. So if you can let go of that and just become more solid here in yourself, that's going to have a greater effect on the world around us.
Yeah, I'm seeing this shift as well of people that, like, from my own personal Facebook, I have people that come on telling me I'm wrong, and I'll literally send a few clips and I'll go, just check this out. Like a switch, they've just started posting, they've switched into this frequency that we're on, this mindset of, okay, there's something wrong. Instead of forcing information, you're right, you have to almost be this leader, this confident, fearless being that they can feed off and feel and see and go, oh, okay, I can do that too.
Yeah.
And it's not scary. And for me, I've gone the total opposite way of fear as this pandemic has emerged. Like, I feel so at home and like ready. I don't know why, but I think it's from all the research and doing all the, you know, going down all these rabbit holes. I feel like I was prepared. I prepared myself for this sort of moment, in a sense.
Yeah, I think everybody has a defining period in their life, and it's probably it for you. It's that what you've done in the years leading up to like get a different perspective of the world around you and a perspective of yourself to understand yourself. And then when this hits, that's like the time, you know?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I already know this.
Yeah.
Cool, how can I help you? What's your perspective on 5G? Do you think we should have a choice in that infrastructure going up and a choice in knowing that it's safe?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so this ties in really well with the whole censorship that you're tackling at the moment. So here in our town, the overwhelming majority of people voted against. Well, not voted, but they put in their non-consent essentially. Like, we don't want that here. They're trying to go ahead and build it anyway. So they're not listening. Then with the emails that we send to Telstra, which is the company trying to put the 5G towers in, they send emails back saying, oh, thanks for voicing your, concern. Then they send another one back saying we're going ahead because our PANSA, which is the governing body for the regulatory body here, says that it's safe. And then you send an email back saying, no, I didn't ask for that. I asked you for an independently verified test and study that shows that it's safe. No, our PANSA. I said, no, I don't want to hear about our PANSA. I said, I know who runs and owns our PANSA. And then they don't write back. So then what they're doing is they're censoring people from even just putting in their non-consent to the company that's trying to put in the 5G towers. So if it was safe, if it was effective, and if it was beneficial, like, wouldn't they be able to provide that? Wouldn't they be able to provide independent testing? Wouldn't they be open to a dialogue? If I have something that's of value to you, I don't need to force it on you, That's just a natural law. You don't need to force something onto somebody that's going to be a benefit, because they should be able to see it. You should be able to show it easily with transparency. And then they'll ask for it. They'll say, hey, look, that sounds great. I want that. Not the way they're doing it with 5G. So you only have to look at the way they're going about it to see that there's something like hugely wrong with it.
Yeah, because we didn't vote for it. We didn't band together and make a choice and go, oh yeah, we want faster internet. We want smart cities. We want smart cars. We want, smart grids and.
Yeah, and if we don't want it, they force us into it. So they burn out half the bush down around the back here, or they, they force people into certain. They force us.
They trick us with our consent and take us consenting.
Yeah, and it's they put it out as a public notice, and if we don't say anything, then we've assented, which means it's an unconscious decision to agree. So if we don't voice our concern, if we don't say we don't want that, they say, well, we told you we were going to put it in, you didn't say anything, so we're putting it in, and you actually don't have a leg to stand on then. But that's when people are. I don't know if it's real or not, but I've seen pictures of 50-odd towers being burnt down in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. I don't know either, but I've seen videos of them burning them down.
Okay.
As well,
well, that's going to happen here. You guarantee it. The people in these towns are not willing to let things like that happen. So if towers go up, they'll come down. Yeah. Simple as that. Telstra, for example, they're like the new Samsung Galaxy 20 whatever, or the new iPhone 50, it's like 5G, it's 5G, it's gonna be the first and best 5G phone. That's them saying we're putting 5G out, but they're packaging in a phone. They're like, whoa, I can watch Facebook faster than I can watch it now. I want 5G. That's what the average person's gonna think. So they're saying we're putting 5G in, but they're packaging it within this thing, this phone, this gadget. It's gonna be better. Your life's gonna be way better because you can watch porn faster than you could before. Like, how is that? So that's kind of how they're, it's always it's a marketing thing. So here's the benefit. We've got this product, here's the benefit. And then most people want that. They go, yeah, I want something screwed into my brain. That my boss talked to me the other day. He said, Elon Musk has got this thing now where you can screw it into your brain and it fires off the neurons and you do these other things. And it sounds good because he's saying people who are vision impaired are going to have better vision than a normal person. That sounds cool, right? To somebody that doesn't understand how the mind and the brain work and how it interacts with electricity, that sounds good. But if you've got an idea of what that is capable of doing outside of this benefit that it's going to give, it's like, that's not a good idea. But most people don't look beyond that initial layer of, look how cool this could be. And that's what they've done with 5G. So a lot of people want it. They think, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, they make it cool, but they've also desensitized us from it through movies.
Yeah.
And music, and not just 5G, but these sort of things, they desensitize us. So when it comes to it, it's like, oh, we don't really think too much about it because we feel like we have these embedded memories, but they've been implanted through movies and stuff that make us feel like we already know what this technology is, or this feeling, or this way of living, or this technocracy, or you know what I mean? It's people can't see that, those are implants.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not very conspiracy or futuristic.
Yeah, well, so, I don't watch TV. I've barely seen any movies except for comedies because I like to laugh. But I can probably personally name 5 movies where there's a lockdown. They lock people up in their homes, in football fields, in cages. I've seen at least 5, and that's somebody who doesn't watch a lot of movies. So how many movies have the majority of people seen, TV shows, whatever, that have depicted huge lockdowns? So it's, like you said, it's already implanted in the mind. So when it happens, when they want to roll that out, they're not really questioning it. It's kind of like, it's almost like they're just going with the motion,
Like going back to being able to consent about 5G or whatever they're putting out, and they have to tell us through, means of, I don't know, these new phones or whatever, however they tell us. It's like, what about the people that don't actually use smartphones? Or watch TV or watch movies? Like, how are we meant to know?
You're not. It's considered public notice if the majority of people have seen something. So I don't watch the news, I don't pick up a newspaper, I don't see anything, but the majority of people do. So if they've gone TV, newspapers, run a few ads, doesn't matter if you and I haven't seen them. If the majority of people have seen them, it's considered public notice and that everybody knows. So that's why it's really important to put in non-consent when there has been public notice, and whether it's like just obvious notice, like you being given notice, or if it's implied notice. So through a medium such as a movie or advertisements that seem like they're for a product, that's implied consent. If you see that coming and you don't say anything about it, so a lot of people did when the first phones were advertised, look, 5G enabled phones, people were saying, hey, look, I don't want that. I don't want there to be 5G. So people knew that that was a form of notice, and they were already putting in their non-consent, which is what needs to be done. If everybody just says, oh, well, that's just for a phone, it's not the full notice, but that's the way they get it in. So we need to, when we see things like this pop up, you need to get onto it as it happens.
I would love for them to actually put a notice out the way they put notices out when you get a fine, or you run through a red light, or you park your unregistered car on the street. They're quick to give you a blatant notice for that right on your window.
Yeah.
Those little things are the little things I'm like, okay, they care more about this than this. Do more research, question everything.
Always.
Don't just consent.
Yeah, always. And also talk to people, because see, when I put that video out that went everywhere, I didn't even know it went anywhere until probably nearly 24 hours after I posted it, because people were calling me. They said, hey, I got someone from Sweden and America and Canada and Germany. They sent me a video. I'm like, oh, really? Because I've put videos out before. They get 2 views. No one cares what I've done before. But the point is that I don't use social media in the way that people do. I think it's got huge power, and it's got a real use if you use it wisely. But I think it's a false sense of connection. I don't think it's really bringing people together the way it used to, the way we should be. So I do most of my connecting in person. So I learn because I talk to people and I ask them questions. I ask them their perspective. I ask them what they've learned. I ask them, their experiences, and I learn through that. I think we live in a technological age, right? I think it's definitely a powerful thing to use the internet. But then what are you getting from the internet? Google owns 92%, I think it is, of searches. If you go against their narrative, you won't come up in any search whatsoever. So people say, well, I looked up a person and it says a man. And they looked up the online dictionary. It's like, man, that is not a legal, even if it says online legal dictionary, that's not a legal dictionary. You've got to pick up a real book, a real, like Butterworth's in Australia, or Black's or something like that. You've got to pick those up. And talk to people who've done things, I'm big on, especially now too, with what we're seeing, I think it's hugely important that we embrace community, and we actually, go against this grain of everyone separate. I think it's the complete opposite. We really need to stick together. We really need to be talking to each other and being around each other, and not, because it's so easy to divide. It's so easy to conquer people when we're divided. That's one of the oldest tricks, Yeah,
and that's why they got everyone busy making money.
Yeah. Yep.
What picture has the media or social media painted you as? And is there anything that you would like to say to clear up any confusion on the perspective that the public might have of you because of?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've been called a fool. I've been called, a lot of names, and been told that I'm like dangerous, to things. And it's funny because if you actually ask me some questions, I'd answer them. I was challenged by several people, and I got back to them. I said, hey, let's do it. You want to do a podcast? You want to grill me? You want to do this? Let's do it. I all backed down. A lot of people wanted me to go on their podcast or their show with a doctor, right? And we'd debate. Say, let's do it. Line it up. Let's go. All of a sudden, the doctor's not available. All of a sudden, they don't want to talk to me anymore either. It's like, well, come on. These people have the audience, so they get to call the shots. People listen to them. But me, I've responded to every challenge, every single one. Nobody wants to talk to me after I respond. And because they just think I'm not, I won't do it. So when they realize that, hey, well, maybe this guy's got a leg to stand on, well, now we don't want to hear from him at all, If people only need to ask me if they wonder. I think if you talk to the people who I actually associate with and ask them, I'm very much a helpful kind of guy, There's, if people have issues with their health or something they don't understand, I always go out of my way to help people. So to think that I've got, I'm a danger or I'm a fool and whatever, people, I've invited the challenges, I've accepted challenges, nobody's stepped up. So that kind of says more than anything.
Well, you're far from a fool.
Yeah.
By the way, we're in the middle of a rainforest somewhere in the beautiful serenity of green and vegetation.
It's good here.
Far from that, from what I've seen, and that's the reason why I've come here to meet you, hear from the source of this information that's being provided from you, and to clarify the confusion that I feel like I came across through just searching your name and seeing what you have been painted as. And you were total opposite of that.
Well, apparently I'm dead too.
Yeah, that's
I got taken out.
You don't post anything. People started to think you're dead.
No, there was a story. That's why some guys started.
Oh,
that
really?
I'd been taken out for saying the things that I said. And yeah, I had people calling me. They leave voice messages. They're saying, "Hey, are you okay? I heard that you're dead. Can you call me back if you're alive?" It's like funniest messages.
Those are the true conspiracies right there.
Yeah. So things get started like that. And it's easy for them to do something like that to somebody like me because I'm somebody without a public profile. I don't have money. I don't have any way to promote myself. You know, I could have started promoting myself heavily through Facebook and YouTube because I started to get a big audience, but I'd make another post and nobody sees it. So it's like straight away, silence. You now cannot get out. I'd need a lot of money to get into, I'd need to buy advertising. I'd need to get myself on a bigger stage. Just not something that's going to happen, you know? And they know that. They have the balance of power. And that's kind of how the world works. But then there's people like you who just go, no, I want to go searching for answers. So there's always people that are going to find, you know.
Hopefully you don't get a call going, Richie's disappeared.
Yeah.
He's contacted all these people that he's making waves.
He's blacklisted people and now,
Yeah, exactly. So how would you like to see the world change in a positive light? And how do you see it shifting into the world that the people want it to be?
I think, personally, I'd just like to see people able to make their own decisions based on freely available information. So a world that doesn't have this massive censorship of information is going to help people because it's so hard to find information on even something as simple as diet. If you go and try to find out about a healthy diet, you'll come up with too many things that are just confusing. They conflict with one another. You've got all these celebrity people saying one thing and then Instagram is saying another, and then nobody knows. It's like, unless you've really studied that, you don't know. People want to find out about their rights, but they don't know. We're not taught about legalese. We're not taught how we are tricked into incriminating ourselves when we've never committed a crime. We have inherent rights. People don't know that. So this world really is stacked against us, and it's a big ask for most people to stand on their own 2 feet and to take responsibility for themselves. So there's a big reward in that for the people that can, but I would like to see more people, especially like young people. I don't want to see them have to go through the trials that it takes to get the beat downs that it takes to really learn things. I think we should be offered and afforded the ability to just get what we need to be vibrant, happy, healthy people and co-create. But the system that we live under wants anything but that. So that's what I would like to see change. I don't think, even to the point where I think if people have misfortune in life, I don't see that as a bad thing because that's character building. That allows you to, through that experience, find out more about yourself and get closer to being self-realized. So I don't think that it should be a world of just sunshine and rainbows and no misfortune. I think those are good things, but I think that we need to have the right, it's like we have these things that we need to build and the tools are hidden from us. How can we build the things we need to build without the right tools? It's just not something that's easy to do, and it doesn't allow us to get where we should be going. And that's what I would like to see more than anything else. What was the second part of the question?
How do you see it shifting into that world we want it to be?
I actually think it takes events like what we're seeing now. I think people are too comfortable otherwise. It's too easy to just turn on a TV, get informed by social media. I know what's going on in the world because Facebook told me. That it's too easy. It's too easy to go to a supermarket and get whatever comes off a shelf as opposed to growing some food at home in your own garden beds and things. You have to care for that. You can't not water it. You can't not look after it. You can't not move it around to the sun and things like that. So these are the little elements that people need to learn. And when people start doing that, that's how we're going to get to where a more positive and fruitful world is going to be. When people start to go, okay, look, we don't need these benefits and privileges that are given to us. We want our rights. And when we have our rights and we stand on our own 2 feet, I think there's nothing, we can't do. And we're so strong as people. We see it when the towers came down in New York. People who would ordinarily swear at each other and punch each other in the head in the street are all working together because there was a common uniting thing that made people have to step up and be better people. So we know we can be that. But when we're too comfortable, especially in Australia, it's one of the most comfortable countries in the world, then people don't have that inertia and that initiative to need to do things. So I think what we're seeing is actually kind of cool in that way. And I think that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Because of our population size compared to the land mass that we have, it's super, and our attitudes. Like if it's obvious that something's wrong, Australians don't stand for it, but we're pretty comfortable in our lives here. and given how easy it is to kind of control, it's most of what gets tested in the world gets tested in Australia first. So tighter regulations on, with anything from traffic to just putting signs everywhere, don't do this, don't do that, to the mandatory vaccines and things. A lot of this is tested in Australia first. They see how it goes, and then they put that into the other Western countries. So it is like a test bed. We're a penal colony. So when they sent us here initially, we were all from the UK. We were all it's the filth of society. So it's kind of like, let's test it. It's like what they do to anyone that they imprison and incarcerate. They're like the filth and the slaves. Let's just test stuff on them. Let's inject them with stuff, like what the Nazis did. And they tested things on people to find out what they knew about certain poisons and not nice stuff. But we are still a penal colony. We're a lawless country essentially, which is actually kind of cool. There's positives to that too, but it's just the whole, the general feel of the thing is that we get tested and it gets put out in other places.
Now hard truth hurts.
A little bit, yeah.
To feel as if you're a guinea pig or some sort of just an experiment. I think that's where evolution comes into play, is this experiment that we're being tested on, and people go, oh, that's evolution, that's human nature. Well, actually it's controlled and forced and manipulated. So is that human nature?
No, well, it's a part of human nature. It's that dark side of human nature, yeah. Yeah, but it's definitely not the total of human nature. What we've done to the natives over the last few decades is what is now going to happen to us. So we use them. What we did is we took away their rights, we took away their land, and then we gave them benefits and privileges. We gave them welfare, free housing, and other things. That's not what they needed. They need their land back. They need to be able to live on the land that they've lived on for 60,000 years and know better than anyone how to take care of it, how to live symbiotically with it and everything else, and how to flourish. They didn't have diseases before we came. We were the disease that we gave to them. So what we did too is forcibly medicate them. If they start getting erratic now because we've introduced them to foods and alcohols and things that they can't handle, now we medicate them. So that's what they're going to do to us. They're saying, you can't work, now we'll give you welfare, more than we normally give you. Oh, now if you want to keep it, you got to get this flu shot. Now you can't get a driver's license or a passport unless you take this and do these steps. It's like they're doing to us what we did to the natives. Well, not us, but the system did to the natives, they're now doing to us. And it's going to be a forced medicated state. That's going to be one thing that's going to happen. It doesn't have to go that way. We can retain our rights. A lot of people are going to ask for it though because they're scared. It's like, do you know about Port Arthur, Tasmania? Yeah, so
Guns being taken away.
Yeah, guns being taken away. So that was a guy who's essentially a stoner, somehow got 15 headshots, which a Navy SEAL can't do. Yeah, while the nearest cop is somehow 500 kilometers away. Like they were dispersed on that day. So now people think, whoa, any crazy guy with a gun could kill me. Let's give our guns back. But if they said, hey, everyone give your guns back, they go, fuck off. We're not giving you our guns. But they set up something like that. So this virus thing, and I still haven't seen any evidence that there actually is a virus, really. And so I'm not saying there's not, but I just haven't seen the evidence for it. But there is no way people are going to agree to a lot of these measures, border patrols, lockdowns, these sorts of things. Why would I want to do that? I want to go out in the sun. I want to work. I want to be able to, support my family. But introduce a virus that you can't see, it could get to you by contact or by foreigners coming into the country. And now all of a sudden, oh no, that lockdown's a good idea. We don't want that to happen because I'm scared now I feel for my life. So that's how they put these control measures in.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of people on the fence that just need just a little push. And I really believe that when they go, okay, you can't fly without a vaccine, you can't get a license without a vaccine, you can't do this without a vaccine, that's when people are going to go, whoa, these people were right. Yeah.
But a lot of them also think that that's a good idea.
Of course,
don't forget. Yeah, they're willing that on. Interestingly, have you ever read this inside? Have you got an American or an Australian passport or both?
American, yeah.
American. It'd be interesting to have a look on the inside. Jay, have you looked on the inside of your Australian passport?
Yeah, but I don't remember what
you should read that. It basically says that any Commonwealth official must aid the holder or the bearer of a passport in their travel, in their journey. You cannot impede them. That's an offence. So anyone that's doing border patrol, anyone that says, oh, where's your vaccine thing? It's like, well, have you read the inside of the passport? You, as a Commonwealth official or somebody in official capacity, must aid me in travel. You cannot impede me. That's an offence. So,
right. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like the police don't even know the laws.
No, they don't.